President Trump has taken a lot of heat for suggesting that his supporters should vote twice. He said this. Listen.
On your ballots, if you get the unsolicited ballots, send it in and then go make sure it counted. And if it doesn't tabulate, you vote. You just vote. And then if they tabulate it very late, which they shouldn't be doing, they'll see you voted and so it won't count. So send it in early and then go and vote.
That would obviously, if that's the suggestion, be against the law, Kayleigh. Why did the president say that?
The president is not suggesting anyone do anything unlawful. What he said very clearly there is make sure your vote is tabulated, and if it is not, then vote. Basically, when you get a absentee ballot and you send it in, there are poll books, and it is recorded that you have tried to vote, that you have in fact voted. And if you show up at a polling site, they look at the poll book and say your vote's been counted. He wants verification. Democrats want a whole new fraudulent system of mail-in voting, never tried before in American history. And what Democrats are saying to you is trust us, but don't verify. And what this president is saying is verify your vote,
but Kayleigh,
make sure it's tabulated.
Send it in early and then go and vote. Isn't that telling someone to go vote twice?
The president said send it in early, go and see if it's been tabulated. If it hasn't been tabulated, then vote. It's very clear. What Democrats are saying is we want a system full of fraud, and we want zero accountability and zero verification that you voted, when we know that hundreds of thousands of ballots were not counted in 2016 before we had this fraudulent system, were not counted.
Another day, another Trump administration official twisting herself into pretzels to try and defend the latest corrupt scheme from the president. This latest scandal comes as Trump has decided to encourage his supporters to vote twice, which, so that we're perfectly clear here, is illegal. Although in Trump's defense, illegal is very on brand. Now, Trump has already begun walking back his claims, now leaning on the idea that he simply wants his voters to vote by mail and then to go to the polls to verify that their votes are counted, and if not, to vote in person. But here's the issue. In a number of states, election officials can't even start the process of counting votes until Election Day, including Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Hawaii, Illinois, Iowa, Massachusetts, Michigan, Missouri, Nevada, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, Texas, Washington, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. And in other states, votes can't even be counted until the polls are closed on Election Day, including Alaska, Florida, Maine, Minnesota, Mississippi, North Dakota, South Dakota, Tennessee, and Washington, D.C. Meaning that when these Trump supporters who are following orders from the president try to verify that their votes have been counted in those states, they'll likely be told that they haven't been counted, and they'll vote again, which, once again, is a felony. What this will do then is purposefully cause problems on Election Day. The director of the North Carolina Board of Elections has already come out and warned people not to come to the polls to ensure that their votes have been counted. Keep in mind too, the reason that we have mail-in voting this year is because there is a deadly pandemic sweeping across the country. The whole point is to reduce crowding at polling places. But sending voters who've already voted by mail to then go to the polls undermines that entire process. And that's not to mention the legal mess it'll cause for the people caught voting twice. Keep in mind, a woman in Texas voted illegally in 2016, not realizing that felons are disenfranchised in the state, and she was sentenced to 5 years in prison for voter fraud. The sentence made headlines across the country, and Donald Trump, of all people, is well aware. Meaning that by encouraging his supporters to also commit voter fraud, he's basically setting them up for punishments not unlike this one, because there is no one he isn't willing to sacrifice while sowing his chaos. And the fact is that that's what he's doing. Any normal leader would just come out and tell people to request a mail ballot early and fill it out and send it back, or stick it in a Dropbox or drop it off at the Board of Elections office, and then go online and track your ballot. But that's not what Trump did, because Trump opted to instead float a bunch of baseless conspiracy theories and then mobilize an army of supporters to storm the polls and possibly commit felonies. He suggested that ballots are going to be harvested, that they're going to be replaced, that other people are going to be able to fill them out, that foreign countries are going to forge them. All of this completely unfounded. But Trump's priority isn't facts, it's creating confusion and inciting panic. He doesn't think he can win fairly, so he's just trying to sow distrust in the election as a whole. The fact is that we have processes. We don't need an army of Trump-inspired vigilantes taking election security into their own hands by storming the polls and then committing felonies en masse. If people want to see if their vote's been counted, they should vote early and then track their ballot. You can track your ballot in 42 out of 50 states. So go to your state's elections website and search for information on tracking your ballot. It's not only easy, but a great way to stay out of prison. The fact is that this administration will continue to put forth whatever tactics they can think of to undermine this election. election, but our job is simple. It is to make sure we have a plan to vote on election day, or if not, that you request your ballot early, and when it arrives, it either goes right back in the mailbox, into a drop box, or delivered to the elections office. They want you to think that the process won't work, but that's only because they're afraid of what will happen when it does. While you're here, please subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, where I take a deeper dive into the week's biggest stories and interview major players in the world of politics, like Kamala Harris, Adam Schiff, Katie Porter, Nancy Pelosi, Cory Booker, Eric Swalwell, and many more. Again, that's No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, available anywhere you listen to podcasts.